Thank you so much for joining me today on an amazing episode of Quarantine Chats Wealthy Wednesday. My name is Michelle Hockett, and I'm a content marketing media specialist at Spotify, and I'm also the founder of It's Epic Group.
It started with my mom. I saw how she raised me and a lot of the challenges that she had when it came to finances. She didn't have anyone to ask those questions to. So I constantly saw kind of the back and forth and the challenges she had, and that always sat in the back of my mind. Fast forward to college and post-college, I worked in a big four accounting firm where I was doing finances and more so on the accounting side, but for businesses, not necessarily for people. So then I started to see friends, family really have financial questions, and they didn't have anyone to ask those questions to. And more specifically, they didn't have anyone that looked like me either. So then that's when I really decided that I wanted to be that person and I wanted to offer them that financial guidance.
Similar to Chelsea, started with my mom as well. Raised as a single parent in a single parent household. My mom, made certain sacrifices for, of course, the betterment of the household. So when I went to college, as any Caribbean parent, she wanted me to be a doctor, but took chemistry, it wasn't for me. And I knew I wanted to do business or own my own business, just didn't really know in what aspect. So when I graduated, I applied to nothing but business jobs. And to be honest, I kind of fell into the profession. That was the first phone call that I got. Went on the interview, I liked what I heard. Went to that company, I stayed there for 2 years, I fell in love with it. Recently transitioned to another company 3 years ago. And I've grown more respect for the profession. So that's kind of how I've gotten to finance. It's just growing up in a single parent household, seeing the sacrifices and knowing that I wanted better for my community and my friends.
I always had a love for math and numbers to the point where I did skip a grade in first grade, didn't go to second grade. So I graduated every education very, very early. Finished my MBA at 21 years old because I skipped a grade. I was always good at math. I love math. But what inspired me to be in finance was seeing the need for CPAs to help Black businesses grow. I did work in a big four accounting firm similar to Chelsea. And again, I was working on these huge clients and, auditing these billion-dollar transactions. And it dawned on me that a lot of small minority businesses will never even get to see $1 billion. And a part of that reason is poor financial structure and poor cash flow management, which is why when you are an entrepreneur or a small business owner, you do need to have a CPA or a financial expert on your team to help you grow. So I saw the need for that. The same time I started my financial practice, a lot of my friends were leaving their corporate jobs to become entrepreneurs. So it was an easy transition from corporate to running the business and helping these small business owners. From then, it's been a blessing to have worked with more than 200 business owners throughout the past 3 years that I've been in business and playing a part in their growth. It means a lot to me. And again, just understanding that financial literacy and business acumen will take you a very, very long way. So if you're serious about building generational wealth and increasing wealth in our communities, you have to understand the language of money. You have to. And that's my story.
Looking back, I can see a lot of people that were close to me making financial mishaps when I was younger, but I think it really became clear and obvious that I wanted to get into the profession. I worked in a role that sold investments and products to financial advisors, and people in my community and in my family and in my friend groups started reaching out to me about just financial advice. And I would take a look at really the ones who were being served by other financial advisors, and I noticed that a lot of the Black people that were around me, frankly, were being underserved by their advisors. I feel like I knew what was on the menu at these firms, and I couldn't really understand. And I had an inkling about why they weren't in these portfolios that I was looking at. So when working with other financial advisors, I figured out how to start the business and figured out how to create margin in it, and felt like I could do it to scale and help people that were in my own family, friend group, and community, and I think the broader Black population. So yeah.
So I'd say generational wealth to me means that my family and the next generation doesn't have to start from a deficit or a negative balance. They're able to start either in a positive way, or at least start from fresh. And really the key thing that I think about, especially for our community, like with that, is a quote where it says, knowledge can provide the best interest. So really meaning that knowledge and education can push you forward more than anything. And I think that's what I try to do in my personal family as well, is trying to give them the education and the stepping stones so then they can go and build multiple streams of income as well. So for example, for my mother, I put her in a fantastic tax program that is held by Shania. It's the Tax and Essentials Learning Program that my mother completed. And now she is able to do tax preparing, and that's an additional stream of income for her. And that's really just because I encouraged her and gave her the knowledge so that she could do more. Really, when you're thinking about saving and how much it should be, I'd say that kind of the key things, I'll start off from the beginning, right? We want to make sure that we have our basics done, but it really depends on your timeline when it comes to saving, so you know what to prioritize. So Michelle just did this survey, and we know a lot of people have their emergency fund, so that's good to know. That means we've got our 3 to 6 months where we're on our way. We've made it inconvenient. It's not in the same bank as our checking account. It's in a high yield, so it's at something that's producing over 1%. And we have multiple savings accounts. So we have our emergency fund, but then we also have, if there's stuff for less than, I'd say 12 to 24 months from now. So thinking about, hopefully, if we can travel again, a travel fund. If you know you're planning to buy a house soon, a house fund, et cetera, et cetera. Also, I would encourage, when you're looking at your emergency fund, kind of keep in mind the situation that we're in right now. For example, we're in the middle of a pandemic. People are getting furloughed and laid off. We want to make sure that we really have enough money in there. Also, we're seeing how people are maneuvering, specifically employers, during this, also the racial injustice that we're seeing. So worst case scenario, make sure you're prepared is what I'm saying. Lastly, I would say when it comes to investing, you really want to make sure how much risk do you want to take on? And then again, what is your timeline? So we have our short term, like I said, less than 12 or 24 months. We have our long term, which is retirement, which could be years from now for a lot of people. But then what happens in the middle, right? Because there's a lot of life that you still have to live. You want to buy a house. You want to make sure that you're prepared for opportunities as well. Also, since a lot of us have been in the house, I think it's been a great awakening to seeing what you've really been spending money on. And you might be surprised that actually you thought you needed X amount of dollars a month, and that's how much you needed in salary. Now I know some people are living off of 1 check or maybe 1.5 checks. So right now, if you are in that scenario, 3 places where I would increase my savings are 401k, make sure you're getting that match, and making sure that you're opening a Roth IRA if you haven't already, especially if you're making less than $124,000. And then you can start looking at a brokerage account. I really like to call that an opportunity fund, because that's really where any opportunities that present themselves, maybe you want to buy real estate with some friends, or you want to buy your first home, things like that come in the middle. That's when you want to be prepared for that as well. So it's not a hard-on percentage, but what I can say is take a look at your finances, look at your cash flow, see some of the opportunities that you're seeing since you've cut back a lot, probably during this pandemic, and push that money to build wealth, because that's really what the goal is for our community and for our families as well.
Chelsea brought up that, a lot of companies are laying people off with the pandemic and being furloughed. I am a strong proponent of having life insurance through your company. Exhaust the life insurance that you can get through your company, because it's the cheapest life insurance you will get. But every person should have an individual policy for themselves. Because 9 times out of 10, when you leave that company and you go to a new one, or let's say you go into entrepreneurship, that life insurance policy that you had there that you was paying at that company is 9 times out of 10 not portable. You cannot take it with you. It's only something you have while you work there.
I think Acorns does bring up, though, a great lesson in just automation, right? And automating your savings and putting it on autopilot so you're not thinking about it. I think the concept of Acorns is great. The actual delivery, to Chelsea's point, could be optimized, right? You can save in much higher yield locations, including automating savings that are going right into an investment account, right? And kind of putting your money in a place where the expected return is a lot higher than inflation and even in high yield savings, right? So the automation, I think, is key, though, for saving. Stash is a great app that allows you to automate actually savings and pulling it right from your bank account into an investment portfolio. So you can buy, shares of a big Microsoft investor. So you can buy partial shares of Microsoft with $2. They charge $1 a month, so it's relatively inexpensive. I think Robinhood is a good way to get started investing. I have some qualms about how they actually price the trades that you submit on your own. You probably get a lot better pricing on a platform that's like Charles Schwab or Fidelity, where it's also free trading. But it's easy to use and the interface is great with your phone, right? So there's definitely a trade-off. I think the apps are great though. That's democratizing the ability to invest. I think where those apps fail is kind of giving you that education to your question earlier, Michelle, around like, well, I can invest, like I just downloaded Robinhood and there's all these stocks here, but what should I buy? And like, how much should I invest in Robinhood? So they're great to democratize investing though, and get access to things that can grow and help you, grow your money over time.
So I think M1 is a pretty nice one as well, along with Fidelity.
People ask me this all the time, like, hey, I got 50K in student loan debt. I have around 60,000 in my bank account. Should I pay off my student loan debt? No. What you should do is invest that money and figure out a way where you can make $50,000 off of your $50,000 that you would have paid towards your debt, and then think about paying your debt down. But still, I would never smack all my debt down if you can afford to. So before thinking about prioritizing debt, because I have debt, but I'm not ashamed of it because my debt to income is pretty low. So you do want to have a very, very low debt to income ratio, meaning that what you earn per month is a lot larger than your debt per month. Like my monthly payments for my credit cards is probably $1,000. This is not my real numbers, but say I make $10K a month. I'm not going to prioritize paying down my debt. I'm going to figure out how I can make $20K a month first, and then I can allocate maybe $500 a month to paying off debt. But you have to understand the time value of money, right? If you have 50K and you're paying off your debt, you could have made that money back so many times over had you just invested in the right vehicles. Even if you put it in an account and you're making 10% a year from that account, I would rather use that 10% off that 50K investment to pay off my debt rather than just smacking the debt down. And again, that's only when you have a very, very low debt to income ratio. If you have a very high debt to income ratio, you should prioritize paying down your debt because it's going to hinder you from building wealth. You can't get a loan with a high debt to income ratio. You can't get a mortgage with a high debt to income ratio. You can't operate comfortably with the high debt to income ratio. So if your ratio is high, you should focus on paying down your debt. But if you're comfortable and you can use that money and invest and build wealth first, worry about debt later.
Yeah, I think the distinction there is when you pay off debt, it's a guaranteed rate of return that you're giving to your personal ecosystem and net worth. Versus when you invest in something, there is risk associated with it. That's why you're getting compensated. So I think it's important. Having a low debt to income ratio is super important. I think is the first way you should look at whether or not you should pay your debt. You should also look at the rate that your debt is charging you, right? If you have debt that's charging you 25% in annual percentage yield, and you can only earn 10% potentially by investing in the stock market, you'll pay off that 25% debt or refinance it at a lower rate than what you could earn in investing.
So what I would say is make sure you have your accounts open. A lot of people have an IRA open, but make sure that you know how it works as well. A Roth IRA is absolutely one of my favorite things in the world because a lot of feedback that I get from people is, oh, I have to put more money into a retirement account, but I can't touch it. What if something happens? And that's why I really like Roth IRAs, especially, like I said, if you make under $124,000, you can make a full $6,000 a year into it. But it gives you the flexibility that you can pull out the money you put in. So for example, if you put in $6,000, it grows to $10,000, life happens, you need $6,000. You can pull out what you contributed tax-free, penalty-free. That is the beauty of a Roth IRA, whereas when you're looking at 401ks and other things, you got to pay tax and penalty on it. Number two, have that brokerage account. I can't tell you how many times an opportunity has presented themselves to a friend or a family member, and they say, oh, I wish I would have saved more, or oh, I wish I would have started investing earlier.
Back off of that, I mean, I like real estate investment trusts I think though for a beginner investor, that's not, personally in my opinion, that's not where you want to be. Just because some REITs have limitations. Some of them don't allow you to touch the money past like the first 3 months of the year. So there's a liquidity issue there. If you need your money and you have to go, hey, I need $5,000. Sorry, it's after March. You can't pull your money out.
Yeah, so I'd say really the best time is when you have life transitions. So the key ones are like marriage, kids, big career, or some sort of lifestyle changes. So even if you're moving from a career where maybe you were making, 70 to 80, and now you just jumped up, you got a big tech job at Google, and now you're at over $100,000, et cetera, and now you have more money and you need to make sure that it's going to the right places. That's when you really want to start with a financial advisor. Anything other than that, I would say really encourage you to get a financial coach to really just start to set the foundation. And then from there, that's when you can really start to build wealth and really figure out what's best for you. And then also you just want to make sure when you're doing your due diligence, do your research and make sure you know what the fees are and what you're really getting yourself into. Is this a one-time transaction? Is this an ongoing relationship that we're going to have? You want to make sure you're doing your research and interview a few people.